Are you curious about how to say erectile dysfunction in Mandarin Chinese? Watch the video. Hey, I'm Jay 老师, and I make videos about traditional Chinese characters in alphabetical order. We're still on characters that start with B in Pinyin romanization system. And today's bo, second tone. The Pleco dictionary lists some 43 bo in the second tone. We're just going to focus on a select few that make the 3,000 most common characters list of the Ministry of Education in Taiwan. Our first three morphemes today share the same component of white. Bai. Blackie is wearing a white sweater. 小黑熊穿着白色的毛衣. I don't know why he's wearing a sweater. It's pretty hot here in Taiwan. If we placed the ren radical to the left of the bai, we get bo. That's your father's elder brother. Bo bo. Bo bo. Am I saying that right? My wife is over here. I had two bo bo. Rest in peace, uncles. Bo mu is the father's elder sister-in-law. And we have a fairly common expression, 伯仲之间, means that two people are almost on par. It means they're almost equal in ability. 其实右边的人比较强. If we change out the ren radical on our left for the water radical, we also have second tone bo, as in hu bo, lake. Piao bo is drift, float on the water. And there's an expression, 淡泊名利. That means that you are indifferent to wealth or fame. Like Blackie. He doesn't care.
What a character.
Swapping the water radical out for the mu or tree radical, bo, second tone again. It means a type of tree, a cypress. I used to play golf at a place called Songboli. It's about 45 minutes away. I gotta get back there. You often see me running around outside on the asphalt. 柏油路. And I'm wondering if they get that from the tar that comes from, or sap that comes from trees that was originally used in making asphalt. Creosote, distilled from tar of trees or coal, was used in asphalt. Today, nearly all of the characters that we go over are the same in traditional as they are in simplified. Our next two second tone bo have the same component. This bo means suddenly. It's comprised of the character bei, which means vigorous or thriving, and it makes sense. And that character can be further broken down into a 10, 10, mi, which means cover, and zi, which means offspring. 字 can also be affixed to many nouns. 车子, car, 房子, house. So we take that bei and we add a li, which also means like force or strength or power. We get, once again, second tone, bo. 勃然大怒 is somebody just breaking out into anger. 勃起功能障碍. That's how you say erectile dysfunction. 功能 is function. You can use that, for example, on your cell phones. 障碍 is obstacle. And we learned 碍 in one of my previous videos, as in an obstruction or obstacle. This is my 脖子. 脖子 is neck. Blackie doesn't seem to have a neck. Take away the li from that previous character, and in the front, you have the radical rou. Now, originally, I used to think that was always yue, and it looks like yue. In fact, in the simplified version of 脖子 to bo, it is a yue. But in traditional characters, this is the radical for meat, or rou, which makes perfect sense because we all have meaty necks. Perhaps you can remember the bo because the word for neck, 脖子, has that zi, and that zi is also in bo. For our next entire character set of bo, we need to learn fu. If we add a cun, which means inch or small underneath it, it's still fu. And then we can put a whole bunch of radicals on there and give us a lot more bo. The dictionary says it means to state or announce, but it's really not seen as an independent character. There's always a radical attached. If you have the radical for 10 or shi on the left side, and in this case it's written more like, it looks like a Christian cross. We get second tone bo, as in 博士。我没有读到博士，但是我有2个硕士，双硕士。So proud of that. It could be said to have been a waste of time. 赌博, gambling. Looks like that guy's gonna win. 博物馆 is museum. The National Palace Museum is up in Taipei. And now there's a branch, I think it's in Jiayi. You can see those oracle shells, the tortoise shells that they used for divination. Some of the earliest examples of Chinese characters. 2nd millennium BCE. Is he scared? No. Maybe he thinks I want to carve into his belly. Scholars know a lot about how the characters evolved over the years, starting from the Jiaguwen, the inscriptions on the tortoise shells. Characters started to appear as a logographic script in the 1st millennium, and where we can see texts. This is 3,000 years of evolution. So the next one, we have that same component. We had the grass radical to the top, that's cao, and we add the water radical to the left side to get bo, which means kind of weak or thin. Blades of grass are weak and thin, and you can kind of memorize it that way. Itself, it just means thin, like 切得很薄. Slice something very thin. 薄弱 means weak in terms of like ideas or evidence. It could take on the meaning of cold. Water is often cold, so the water radical. However, in the sense of being cold to others, it's pronounced bao, 2nd tone. With all these negative meanings, you gotta wonder why it is a surname, but it is. All right, it's not always bad. The same character can be pronounced in the 4th tone. And that is bo, as in 薄荷, which is mint or peppermint. I've grown that before too. Chinese scholars of the 5th century were already talking about tones. They named a level tone or 1st tone, a rising tone or 2nd tone, and then what they called a departing tone and an entering tone. Scholars can go back to about the 6th century with an analysis of poetry to figure out how the characters really sounded from that time up to the present. It's pretty fascinating stuff. Let's take off the grass and the water and add the hand radical to the left, and you get, for example, 肉搏, to wrestle with the hands. This 搏 with the hand radical is more of a literary character. In terms of frequency, it comes in at 2441, so it's bordering on a character that maybe you don't really need to know, but it's on our list. 搏斗 is to battle, to wrestle, to fight. There are 2 ways to write this 搏. 3 if you count the simplified. This is from the Pleco dictionary. And they both have the horse, ma, radical on the left side. One of them kind of helps you remember because it means to refute. So the horse, and then looks like 2 X's. So you can think of maybe an ornery horse. Refuting. Refuse is almost the same as refute. You kind of go against. This is actually Yao from the Book of Changes, I Ching. They're the solid or broken lines in the trigrams used for divination in the Book of Changes. Seeking knowledge from the supernatural. And I can tell you your future. It's more characters. 驳回 is to turn down a request or a petition. 反驳 is to refute or retort. Very common. And one of my favorites is 萝卜的卜. By itself, it's listed as a meaningless bound form, but paired with 萝, it's radish or carrot. bo, it's second tone, but when you say with lo bo, it sounds like a first tone. Bai lo bo is a white radish, daikon radish. This started out as a gardening channel, and I used to grow a lot of daikon radishes. I love them because you get a lot of bang for your buck. You plant a couple of seeds and you get these massive vegetables, which are quite pungent. Use them a lot here. They slice them very thin, and marinate them. Lobogan is dried radish or dried daikon. My wife heard me recording this and she said lobogan is both loved and hated by the elderly here because they had to eat so much of it as a child. It was a staple. It was preserved with salt and they had it every day for all kinds of meals. So it reminds them of their childhood, but at the same time, they certainly had a lot of it. A couple of months ago, I did a climb with JC to a hilltop village where the whole road, they were producing this lobogan, and we spoke to the old ladies there. You could just check out this video here. My very first character video where I introduced Ah. But back to bo. Grass radical on the top and enclosure, and then one mouth field radicals from top to bottom. And the simplified is, wait for it, yeah, 2 strokes. It also has a fortune-telling meaning. Oh, and there's lobogao. It is so popular here that people will have that for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Not usually by itself, but with other foods. Put a little soy sauce on there. ㄅㄛAll is carrot. Our next video will go over the sound forms bu, bu, and bu. See you next time, Runner's Garden signing off. Ooh, we got a G-Wagon here. I always like to put the cool cars in my videos.